Live tonight from the virtual Texas Motor Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to RaceSpot TV's continuing coverage of the 2021 SimSeats Real Sim Racing Cup Series playoffs. It is the round of 8. We are that much closer to crowning a champion in 2021, and so happy that you're with us as always on a Monday night, strapped into the virtual seat and along for the ride with us. As always, alongside of myself, Evan Pasoko, happy to be joined by Nolan Rempel in the booth. Our producer is Hugo Luis, and Nolan, we have whittled it down to 8. So we started with 16 about 6 weeks ago, but now it gets pretty serious because for the first time, we can say that tonight a ticket to the championship is on the line.
Oh, absolutely here, Evan. I mean, only 4 can advance to that crucial final race over in Phoenix. And what 3 tracks better to try to shake up a championship than in the round of 8? You got Texas Motor Speedway, you got Kansas Speedway, and then of all things for the cutoff race, Martinsville Speedway. So no doubt, that's going to be some beating and banging over these next 3 weeks.
I think that's the story, right? Is I do not want to go to Martinsville with my fate uncertain. Of course, we just got through a round that ended at the Charlotte Roval. It was Matt Danson in a must-win situation, winning that race at the Roval, locking himself into this round of 8. Lariah, McBride, Rabel, and Nieto were eliminated. So we hit the reset button and try it again. 8 drivers remain. 3 bonus points going to be handed out to both Matt Danson and Daniel Eberhardt to kick this round off. That's courtesy of Eberhardt's race win at Las Vegas, and of course Danson's win at the Roval. But that is not a comfortable gap. No, I mean, we talk about this all the time, right? The difference between this series and the NASCAR Cup Series, somebody like a Kyle Larson in the NASCAR Cup Series starts each round with some 60 points above the kind of reset number, right? He gets a ton of playoff points and all that he carries through. This is kind of that old school chase style where you get 3 points for a win, that's it. So that is really not much of an advantage to guys like Eberhardt and Danson. This is going to be an extremely cutthroat round, and who knows? I think that any driver could win a championship on this list, but you really can't get away with the mistakes at this point, right? Being the top 12 of 16 was only so challenging per se, right? Being the top 8 of 12, a little bit more difficult, but you cannot afford, I think, any bad race in this next 3-week period.
I couldn't agree more. This is one of those races where if there was ever a point where you had anything you had to pull out, now is definitely the time to pull out all the stops that you haven't yet. And for guys like Andrew Friedosh, they are going to have to be watching their backs. I mean, Friedosh has been one of those drivers who we've been known to be pretty safe so far throughout throughout this later portion of the season in particular, but that doesn't mean he's out of the woods yet. In fact, you take a look at how the qualifying looks, and already he's still tied with that pole position. So Friedosh has got quite a bit of competition coming on in for him these next 3 weeks.
And of course, Danson, you take a look at him now in qualifying. He needed that win on the Roval to get the job done. All of his race wins this year have come on the road courses. Can he step up in this round of 8 and get himself into the championship? The defending Winter Series champion, looking to become the first Cup Series champion not named Andrew Friedosh since 2017. It has been quite a reign for the driver of the 88 machine. And you know, you can see it as we look in at some of this live qualifying. By the way, 32 drivers racing in tonight's SimSeats 250, so no risk of anybody being eliminated and not making the show, Nolan. Is that, of course, this modern-day intermediate racing, not everybody's favorite. Some drivers excel at it than others. And I can speak firsthand, having been at the Cup race just yesterday here at Texas, that, you know, especially on iRacing, it's a little bit more emphasized or dramatic than how you see in the real world. But listen, we know what to expect by this point coming into an intermediate race like this. It's going to be chaotic. You're going to be wide open. You're going to be in big packs, and it could be just as treacherous for a playoff guy as a Martinsville, just because when you're in big packs, anything can happen, and with that comes a certain level of unpredictability.
And usually when we talk about, you know, races having unpredictability, you think about more races like Talladega or Daytona, but surprisingly, those have been some of the most predictable races we've been able to see all season long. They've been some of the tamer races as well. It has been these mile-and-a-half tracks that has definitely been kind of the wild card races throughout the course of the year, which honestly, it's a very nice change in pace compared to the original trend that we've been seeing ever since these Gen 6 cars were released.
It is very different indeed, and of course, maybe a precursor of what we'll see in 2022 when we start talking about racing for points in the next-gen NASCAR Cup Series cars. Final couple of seconds winding down in the qualifying session, and we're going to get the first race of this round of 8 underway. Of course, as always, coverage of tonight's race is brought to you by SimSeats. Since 2009, SimSeats has been designing and fabricating high-quality, made-in-the-USA driving simulators, including motion systems, complete turnkey iRacing packages, and custom fabrication. Their customer base includes all racers from the amateur to the pro ranks, and everyone on the SimSeats team is a weekend racer too. Their passion for racing drives them to build better sim racing equipment. Join SimSeats for the thrill of racing at any time, in any car, and on any track by visiting sim-seats.com to learn more information. One thing I always look at as well, though, when we come to a racetrack like this, right, is who has been good on the intermediate tracks this year, as these drivers get 60 seconds before we actually go to the grid. Maybe one last time to practice pit lane entry. Well, let's talk about some of the other intermediates, right? It's notable because Kansas coming up next week. But last time we were at a track similar to this was Atlanta. That was a Brandon Bowie race win. Bowie also won Nashville. A couple of weeks earlier than that, Brian Chambliss took home a win. Andrew Freenosh won in our first trip to Kansas. So Freenosh, Bowie, two names that keep popping up. They've also shown speed tonight. I think this could be a battle between those two.
Don't count out Daniel Eberhardt, though, Evan. I mean, he won the first race of the round of 12 at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, so you got quite a few bigger names that have the potential for eking out the race win tonight. Now, I don't think Texas necessarily is Eberhardt's track, though. He is starting 20th place, so for a guy that's already won one race at a mile-and-a-half speedway just a few weeks back, he's got some work to do tonight.
It is time to find out. Let's go trackside and take a look at your SimSeats starting grid. And it is a front row of championship hopefuls. Andrew Freenosh is on pole position with a 29.620. He will bring us to the green flag this afternoon. Alongside him, championship rival, the number 34 of Brandon Bowie. Then a couple of non-playoff cars around through your top 6. You got Zach Carr and Kyle Kamer on row 2, and Joseph Tyson and Michael Araya row 3.
At row 4, you're going to have, of course, Liam Sheen and Brandon 6. Jaron Weinmeister and San Diego will be rounded out the top 10 and the top third of the field, with Brett McBride and Nicholas Mara back on row number 6.
And continue down through, you got Ross Cato alongside playoff hopeful Adam de Blasio. Nick Silver's in a fight for the championship. He starts 15th. Agnew Phillip is 16th. Also looking for a title fight. Cody Harris is 17th. And Matt Danson, middle of the road, P18.
So it took almost to the half of the grid in order to just get 1/10 separated from pole sitter down to 18th place in the qualifying times. It's Trey Browning at 19th with Daniel Eberhardt over there in that 20th position. Bradley Burke lines it up at 21st with Marius Leschinski in 22nd. Matthew Mara and Sean Casto in 23rd and 24th.
Continue it on down through the field. You'll find Rabel, Kaczynski, Washington, Jones, Stanford, and Chambliss. Your top 30, William Schmidt and Tom Morano will round out your 32-car field. Everybody from 27th on to back opted not to take a time in qualifying. Those positions were based on provisionals. Of course, Texas Motor Speedway has been one of the latter races in this championship now for some time. And of course, you look back to last year, well, Daniel Eberhardt won here at the Texas Motor Speedway. Last year, this was the opening race of this round of 8. Kansas was the opener, and it was second. This year, it's flip-flop Texas at first, Kansas in 1 week's time. So Eberhardt looking to defend a win. If he can do it, he'll fight for a championship again here in 2021. But the lights are out on top of the iRacing pace car, and as always, happy that you're spending your Monday night with us here on RaceSpot TV. The pace car will dive to the safety of the pit lane, and the field will be in the hands of 3-time champion and 6-time winner this season, Andrew Freenosh. It's his field to control as we say, let's go playoff racing in Texas. And lap number 1 goes to Freenage. The fighting is going to be a little bit further back. That is the number 1 car of Liam Sheen with JDR graphics on his Ford Mustang. A little bit of a new look this afternoon. Brandon DeBuey trying to make up for lost ground. He looks to the inside of the 1 car in a battle for 4.
And it didn't take long for Brandon Bowie to be muscled out of the way. He had tried to clear down in front of Zachary Carr coming out of turn number 2 on that opening lap. Oh, trouble already deeper in the field. Jared Weinmaster gets turned. There's 5-7 involved. And it's already the big one on just the 3rd lap of the race. Several cars slide and slam into pit road, and there's one as well on its roof. And that, I think, might just be the 21 machine.
There are several playoff drivers involved in this. A huge accident coming to take lap number 3 with major championship implications. I believe Eberhardt, Danson, and de Blasio all with some pretty substantial damage from this one. But you mentioned Jared Weinmaster, and that is where it all started. Watch off of 4 right there. He gets hooked. He's sideways in front of the field, and at that point, there really wasn't anywhere for many cars to go. And there is de Blasio in the air and on his lid. What a huge shot to a championship hopeful.
You mentioned we would probably be seeing some chaos here tonight. I don't think either of us expected for it to come on lap number 3. We know the starts of these races can be hectic, Evan, but I mean, the 3rd lap of the race, and already we're seeing guys wanting to hook the bumper. I didn't think it would be getting quite this physical so early on.
Yeah, I mean, we know you're going to see a little bit of pushing, but, you know, same rules apply to pushing on an intermediate racetrack as you would on a super speedway. You really don't want to be pushing off of the corner, and, you know, that's at least half of your playoff field with damage. De Blasio was on his lid. Danson got torn up in the initial bit of damage. Eberhardt got split from behind. Even Agnell Phillip is right there in the midst of all of it. I don't know if Phillip got away scot-free, but man, was he close, and clearly de Blasio the worst off. You could see Daniel Eberhardt, if we can get a second look with the 90 car. I believe he ends up having pretty straight-on impact into the pit lane wall, which severely damaged the 90. Right now, Eberhardt and de Blasio are in the last 2 positions on the track.
Eberhardt took a hard shot to the inside wall. I know that Agnell Phillip did get into that a little bit. He kind of ran over the back of, I believe it might have been Kyle Kamer, and then got rear-ended by Matt Danson. You see the 94 just there getting collected right in the middle of it, but it could have been a lot worse with the 94. And there you see Eberhardt sliding way into the pit box of the pole sitter driver as well. Saw Danson was collected to that as well. So many playoff drivers getting involved in such a huge wreck early on. These are the kinds of incidents that you wanted to keep clear of, and you talked about it before, Evan. These guys cannot afford to be caught up in incidents like that in these types of races.
Daniel Eberhardt has gone to the garage. His night is done, just like that. So I just mentioned the defending race winner. He is out of this race in the blink of an eye. De Blasio likely to not get much out of this night. He's down at the bottom. And what a development just in the opening 6 laps of this SimSeats 250. This is a long race. 250 miles at the Great American Speedway, 167 laps on deck. Let's watch the perspective from Matt Danson and his Logitech G Altis Esports Chevrolet. On the bottom, you can see the contact up ahead. Just not a chance for him. And oh, that second hit was a pretty good lick. Not sure what Danson's going to have speed-wise coming into this race, but he'll try to tough it out. But this is huge with a lot of those big names towards the bottom of the championship field. Of course, Daniel Eberhardt won the round of 12 opener at Las Vegas, our most recent intermediate racetrack winner. And then it was out for Talladega and Charlotte. Didn't matter. Well, he's going to have a lot of pressure on him come Kansas and to come Martinsville, because he will likely be at the very bottom of this championship. The lights are out on top of the pace car, though, and we try to pick up the pieces. Big movers. After that incident, guys like Rabel, Kaczynski, and Chambliss, who are able to avoid the wreck, are up some 17 and 20 positions. After starting in the 20s, they are top 10 cars at lap number 6. Let's try this again. Pace car going to be in. Restart procedure now controlled by the 88. He can fire off when he wants. Green flag back in the air.
Green flag, green flag.
And this time, the top two on the outside lane looked to get away well. Not caught napping the first time. Car clears down in time. Liam Sheen, though, not able to do so. Joseph Tice will pick his way up to third place, and she will let him in line up towards that outside wall. We are single file now, unlike the initial start of the race.
Well, much more tame opening lap of this race as drivers will single file things out just a little bit, and only 3 playoff cars right now inside of the top 14 in the running order. Joseph Tice in that blue number 5 Chevrolet, third in line. Behind them, who's that looking to the inside of the racetrack, is that Nieto. He looks underneath Michael Laraya, who works on the outside of the racetrack. The number 44 Sim Speed Shop Chevrolet up top, not going to carry the speed off of 4 and give the spot to Sam Nieto as he's up to P6.
Talk about how big of an impact that opening wreck had, and you look at Trey Browning down in 9th place. It is a 9-car breakaway, and apart from the first 2 back fighting for the last spot in the top 10, pretty much everybody behind them got damage from that big mess on the front straightaway. So that just goes to show really just how many cars were collected in this one. And you got all these guys, that have no damage. They're taking it easy. They're fighting up front. Everybody else, so it's just a hornet's nest for the guys that were already collected up in earlier incidents. You wonder if some guys might not have learned the lesson.
And this is how this modern day intermediate racing is. 3 wide in turn number 2. It is Jaron Weinmaster in the middle of that. Remember, he was the driver who was at the center of where all of that incident started the first time through. But they'll get back to side by side. Agnew Phillip going to use the bottom. He'll drive by the 25. The 3 Nick Silver follows him through. And those cars are the 4th and 5th highest running playoff drivers in 12th and 13th position. And because it's the first race of the round, the math is pretty easy. And that means they're probably sitting 4th and 5th in the points as they run at the moment. But look at this breakaway. David Washington's that orange and blue 98 Chevrolet you saw right at the front of this group. He's kind of the lead of this pack, but David Washington's about 2 seconds behind the car in 9th. So the top 9 pulling away from everybody else back here in the mid-pack where it seems most of the action's happening.
And I think part of that breakaway is actually contributing to the fact that the guys up front are not battling nearly as hard as the guys down here are either, because they recognize it is a very, very long race. You've still got, I think, over 150 laps remaining. That is well over 200 miles still. There's no point in making you all sorts of crazy moves trying to go for these little positions when you have so much time left to go. You know pit stops are going to be a factor probably more than once throughout the course of this race just for the tires alone. It's not necessarily something you need to force the issue on nearly as much as you would have to, say, maybe out of the track like Kansas next week, where it is only 200 miles. You have that much less time to work with.
All fair points as we see the 49 machine of Schmidt, kind of a little bit of a bubble there, working on his own in the number 19 spot. And up the road, there's a couple of close calls there. It looked like it was the 03 car who was a little bit high in the corner. That would have been the 03 machine of, I should say, the 03 car up top, rather, of Leschinski was the guy who got close. Ross Cato's in the mix as well. He's chasing down to Matt Danson at the moment. Good battle for position here. And, of course, Danson trying to recover from the damage. Both he and Cato have some battle wounds, likely why they are some 12 seconds off the pace of the race leaders. Up front, though, battling for second position on back as Joseph Tice will drive it around the 26 Zach car, and he clears him off of 2. So Joseph Tice, a race high P2 right now. Not that car's going to let him go, but nice pass there by the 5 machine.
And he had been working on Zachary Sharp for the better part of a lap and a half or so, and Tice finally managed to clear up for that second position. But look at how much time he has lost up to Andrew Freenage as a result. They were running nose to tail before that. As soon as he started to be over the pass, though, they started to drop back. But now, See Joseph Tice trying to work his way up and close in the gap. Starting to break away from Zachary Carr, who's down in third place. But you do have to be very careful about tire life. You don't want to find yourself burning all your stuff up early on, trying to get one position, and find yourself vulnerable to be losing 5+ later on in the run. This is one of those tracks that is known for just chewing up tires, particularly the right front.
Even though, the sim is replicating the weather like it was yesterday in Fort Worth, Texas, right? We're talking about only 7 degrees Fahrenheit. Track temp's still 94. I mean, it is still a hot and slick. And even though it's a newly paved track, right, with that reconfiguration, which has changed how this place races, even with all of that, you're right, it is still going to eat away at those tires, and you do need to be conservative and let the car last over the course of a run. That's the number 25 machine on the right-hand side of your screen, so kind of keeping tabs on Brian Chambliss back in the 14th spot, and up the road as well, a little bit of side-by-side action. That's Leschinski going to get around the 52 of Casto. Casto with a bit of back-end damage after being involved in an incident at that lap number 2/3 marker. Got a little bit on the back end of the race car. I mean, we were just talking, Nolan, ironically enough, about, how the Texas race yesterday for the Cup Series had quite a big wreck on the back straightaway, and coincidentally, we get one. I mean, it had to involve it in some sort of fashion at least a third of the field, if not half.
I mean, to be fair, that race made it 34 laps. We made it 3. So we're about 30 shy.
This is true, and of course, I think in that incident for the Cup Series, most of the playoff drivers were not in it. I don't really think there were any playoff drivers who got serious consequences from it, whereas here tonight, I think it may be the defining storyline. You're on board with the 34 machine Bowie. He is looking for a way to get around the one of Liam Sheen. Sheen holding 4. There's a little bit of a door there, and the 34 is going to go for it. So Bowie, after having lost all these spots on the opening lap of the race, wants to get him back, but Nieto kind of pushes Sheen by on the outside there, and Bowie's going to have to keep working.
And this is where that reconfiguration all the way back in 2017 really starts to come into play. That turn 1 and 2, the inside line is not as effective as one of those middle grooves could end up being. And Zachary Carr looking to be backing off early and lets Sheen go quite easily. And hearing there might be a mechanical issue going on for that 26 machine. It's a bit of an interesting one there.
Yeah, just keeping tabs on the radio communication there in the 26 machine. Is Zach Carr letting the guys know that something doesn't feel right? He's not exactly sure what the problem is. So that could be interesting and is something to monitor. As behind him, Nieto on the bottom, trying now to hold off the 34 Bowie. I was just commenting on the 34. Carr was struggling to make the pass on the bottom. He goes up top. Look out! The 2 car in Nieto was sideways off of turn 2 and nearly cleaned out the 34. What a job to save it. And he's not going to lose all that much. Lariah tries to pounce, but they're going to be nose to nose, the 2 and the 44 fighting for P6.
And once again, that has to, do partially apart with how that reconfiguration works. Like I was just talking about, the inside line does not work as well. It's much more of a middle groove corner for 1 and 2. That has to do with the fact that it is only banked 20 degrees in turns 1 and 2 with a wider configuration. 24 degrees in 3 and 4, which of course means you can pretty much hold it almost looking to the floor in these earlier runs. Through 3 and 4, not the case for 1 and 2, where you already have to start lifting off just about 2 or 3 laps into these runs.
And more people, we talk about the reconfiguration. Most of that was that change you mentioned, lowering the banking, widening the surface down here in 1 and 2. But you can see nobody's really working that high up the racetrack. They're going to try to be as low as they can, even when they're side by side. And there's no resin or PJ1 that we could put onto the racetrack in the sim, so you're not going to add a middle lane. Is Carr now the one who bobbles that time? Just got a little bit out of shape. I wonder if he clipped the apron and will be able to park it in the middle of the road, not give Nieto an opening. Nieto looks high, and now it's Rabel underneath in the 29 Ford. He wants to take the spot away. Carr again sideways on corner exit. He will wash up in front of the 2, so Zach Carr really struggling in the center. Seems like that car wants to walk up the hill.
Well, we already heard him say that he doesn't feel like there's something quite right with his 26 machine, so he's probably struggling with that. I know in 3 and 4 where he bobbled there, it was a tiny bounce on the apron, but you and I both saw it and didn't even get close to it in 1 and 2. So that is just that 26 car just struggling for pace through the center of the corner, particularly getting onto the power. That can be a really hazardous thing to work with when you've got guys behind. Trouble up in front. Brandon 6 has blown the motor. And the 66 car pulling it down on the apron in 3 and 4. Gets out of the leaders just in time. It looks like he will be done for the night.
And that was on his own, obviously previously damaged from that incident early. The engine let go in 2. Unfortunately, he had an escape route to get to the safety of the pit lane. He is on pit road, so there is no hazard on track, and we will stay green. All of this from third on back. Bowie's the third place car. That's the pink-nosed Toyota. Lead it off into turn number 3. Everybody from third on back, about 1.4 seconds off of the race leader. So Fridosh and Tice doing a good job of pulling away from this group here. Rabel was just making a pass on the bottom a couple laps ago. Now it's a role reversal. He's up top, and it's Nieto down low, looking to clear him, and successfully so in turn number 1. There's Carr again, washing up the hill. It opens the door for Browning, and that is what is left of Brandon 6's number 66 Chevrolet. Only reason I know it's a Chevy is because it got the bow ties on the windshield banner, because there's no hood and no front end left on that car. So Texas claims another victim. That is Eberhardt, that is Kamer, and presumably 6 all going to be retired from this race in the first 30 laps.
It's definitely, such a shame that you have so many of these retirees early on in the race, and it can, be partially blamed to some of the impatience of some of the drivers on that third lap of the race. It's a very difficult thing to be patient, especially when you're running around in such a tight field. Off of these corners, you got guys pushing each other, guys trying to make moves, but especially on it's a little dog-like section here on the front straightaway, it becomes that much harder to try to avoid getting into each other, especially when you're already side by side. And that means when you have a wreck in front of you, it is that much harder just to avoid it. But I think I can speak for both of us here that I did not expect us to see the field already spread so far thin so early when we came into this race tonight.
And, we talked about all the drivers that gained an advantage. I mean, Chris Rabel's the guy who started this race back in 25th position. That was on time from, qualifying. Obviously missed something, though, because Chris was the second-placed car in practice. So him taking advantage of the wreck and getting towards the front of the field is not surprising, right? Chris Rabel probably with top 10 speed. But you look at somebody else who has a big gain, right? Somebody like a David Washington, right? Who started this race 27th. That was based on a provisional. When you look at what he did in practice, he wasn't even a top 20 car in practice. So he's also somebody who takes advantage by avoiding the incident. But now can you step up that pace? And that's why P10 is some 3 seconds off of the guys up front. It's just a little bit of a different class. David Washington and Dylan Jones both doing great stuff so far. They are both in the green by 17 spots, but they just don't have the speed this early in the race to compete with guys who were top 10, top 5 speed in practice, and that's to be expected, right? You're going to need a long green flag run for some of these two, the most experienced of drivers in this series, to be able to make some magic happen. Taking a look up the road, that is number 94 of Agno Phillip. I mentioned that he had gotten some damage in the incident as well. It doesn't look like it's hurting him all too bad. It's just rear end damage, which is, I guess, the better alternative to front end damage on the car. You can see it's pretty noticeable, but I feel like it's probably hindering him some, but it hasn't totally taken him out of this race. He's going to be at a disadvantage aero-wise. Chambliss drafted up on him, and anyways, but Agno Phillip immediately goes kind of into recovery and save mode, right? And you just try to salvage what you can out of this race. I think all things considered, I think he's pretty fortunate and pretty happy that he's still on track.
I think that's the case with a lot of drivers that are just happy to still be on the track and not quite out of the fight just yet. I mean, Agno Phillip, he has damage, yes. It's noticeable and no doubt might be having some kind of an impact on him, but it's not as worse as it could be. I mean, you look at guys like, Adam de Blasio, who got up and on his roof, and de Blasio now faces himself being, 3-4 laps down, but he is still on track, hoping to maybe gain a few extra spots. Rhett McBride has been even further off pace so far this entire run. Brandon 6 has blown the motor upon trying to gain a few extra spots by staying on track himself. So I agree. Overall, it could be a heck of a lot worse. So, you know, at the end of the day, you're still fighting, and you have the potential to fight for top 10 positions. I think Philip, though, has got to play the strategy game this year on out to the end of the race.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about somebody like a de Blasio, right, fighting through this. He has not parked it. He's still in the race, but remember, that car was on its lid, turtled. So he's 5 laps down in 29th. He's hoping that more drivers DNF in this race so he can gain positions. In fact, as your race leaders come by the start-finish line, there is de Blasio on the outside. You'll see Agnew Phillip pass him here in just a minute, and you'll see how quick the speed difference is between them and him. So he's in it, just hoping the cars rack out, right? Eberhardt's out of the race. Danson's hurt. So Agnew Phillip and Nick Silver, if they can just stay in this thing, right? They're in 13th and 14th, back-to-back right now. Not the greatest of positions for either of them to be in, as Nicholas Marr is going to come down pit road. He also sustained all of that pretty big damage in the earlier incident in this race. For Phillip and Silver, I think that it's just about getting through this one. And again, if you can finish right there, you're right now the 4th and 5th running cars of those playoff 8. It's okay. Not a great night. You're not going to get away from the cut line. You'll be the cut line, but it's a lot better than being in a double-digit hole, which those other 3 behind you may find themselves in by the time this race is done. Mentioned a couple of times that these race leaders have been able to pull away their advantage now, 1.3 seconds over Brandon DeBuey in third on back. But I'll tell you what, Joseph Tice has been all over Andrew Freenosh this entire time, Nolan. He is not letting the 88 car get away, and of course we expect Freenosh to be good. This is when he turns it up in these late race and late season moments, but what a run so far for Tice, who is right in the thick of things and can certainly give him a run for his money in fighting for the race win here.
And I've been noticing Joseph Tice trying to get even closer to Andrew Freenosh a few laps now, but I think Tice has got to be very careful that he doesn't burn his tires off here. It is, of course, worth noting that you have to make sure that you conserve those tires throughout the course of the race as well. It is, of course, a very, very long race that you have to try to navigate tonight. And like I said before, you don't want to burn all your stuff up in the early stages to find yourself very vulnerable later on a fuel run, potentially only being liable to lose more positions, especially since we've seen it before. You know, the later you get into these runs, the more likely it is you're going to step that back end around and start to slide up the track, particularly in 1 and 2, which historically has been a trouble spot at Texas.
It has, and, you know, there's 25 cars on the lead lap at this moment. You know, something that we always talk about when you have some of the smaller fields, Nolan, we get later in the year, less drivers have, you know, got really something to fight for in the championship. I think it does aid the championship fight, right? I think that having a little bit more space can help, you know, those non-playoff cars not be a factor. Of course, not the story tonight because, well, that major incident at the start of the night was kicked off by some non-playoff cars getting together. You know, not going to put any additional blame on them. No one's here to say that if you're not a playoff guy, you can't race. But I just think with only 32 cars having started this race and with about 29, 30 of them still on track, I mean, there's a pretty good chance that this race now can get a lot of green flag laps in, and that's where things could really get interesting. With strategy, probably looking at a 2-stopper to get to this distance. They have 4 sets of tires available on pit road should they need them, so not going to be concerned on running out, at least at this juncture. But with so many cars very close to each other on pace, if this thing can go green and we can get some green flag pit cycles, that could really kind of shake things up strategy-wise and put a lot more people into the picture to fight for this thing. As you can see, Phillip is way low that time going down the back straightaway as he was trying to hold off Dylan Jones, unable to do so. Jones makes the pass for 12th. Behind them, here comes Stanford around Silver, making a pass for 14th.
And Nick Silver, back for the position in turn number 1. Opted against it, though, but in doing so has compromised his own line. That will give a bit of a run up to Sean Casto, who will no doubt try and make that pass for 15th place if he can get up to him. But for now, he's opted to just hold that one in line, and already you can see Castanel started to drop from the rear of the field, but looking to maybe diamond off the corner, enter high, exit low. It's a very good strategy to work at Texas, and look how much of a run that shot him on down the front straightaway.
And a couple of guys joking around if they had about 150, 200 more horsepower, they'd be able to get to him. Of course, the difference between the intermediate package and this big track package. But, you know, I mean, you look at this group here, right? Lariah and Bowie sitting to 4th and 3rd, respectively. Nieto's there, Sheen's there, Rabel's there. I mean, all of these cars, even Browning, don't forget about him at 8. All the way through the top 8 are still within about 3 seconds of the race leader. Let's talk lap times. Best lap time for your race leader, Andrew Friedosh, was a 29.734. He just ran a 31.512. So that right there, Nolan's about 2 seconds to fall off. So if you're within 3 seconds of the race leader, you are very easily within range of, again, trying something different on the strategy, going a little bit shorter, trying to go for an undercut, or doing the opposite, right? Go for the overcut. Go a little bit later, give up some time, and you know, get some speed in those tires. I mean, if these guys can stay within 4 to 5 seconds of the race leader on pace, then I think those pit stops could really bring all of these drivers into the conversation, and you got to wonder what they're fighting for, right? Friedosh, Bowie, and Sheen, all playoff guys running 1, 3, and 6. They may be slightly less inclined to take a big gamble because they have more to lose as we ride on board with Matt Barra and his Barra Motorsports Toyota. Whereas if you got Tice, Lariah, Nieto, Rabel, Browning, those aren't playoff guys, Nolan. The only thing that they can get out of this race win tonight is a checkered flag, as we see Barr bringing it to pit road. So that's why I think that this race is far from decided, because you got a lot of non-playoff guys up there who can take gambles, try to, you know, train something up and challenge what appears to be Friedosh and Tice for the race win right now.
If there was ever a pit strategy to go on, I would assume it would be the undercut. I mean, I've been watching kind of some of the races over these, you know, last week or so here at the Texas Motor Speedway, including other leagues, but I have not ever seen an overcut work. I've seen people attempt it, but they've always lost more time than able to gain. Sure, you can come on in a bit later and they'll get slightly fresher tires, but as you've just pointed out, right now, it's 2 seconds if you're going to be out there on fresh tires at the moment. You're going to gain so much more time with those couple extra laps on fresh tires than a whole stint of maybe 5 or 7 lap fresher tires. It's just not worth it.
And of course, we'll see how it plays out. Sometimes the drivers don't take our recommendations and it works. Sometimes they do and it doesn't work. We'll find out how this one shakes out. Here's a good trio. You're on board with Trey Browning. One thing you'll notice as tires start to go away is exactly what happened to Chris Rabel there. You just can't hold it low as long as you used to be able to. You'll start to slide up and wash away through the corner. And that's what happened there. You know, credit to Rabel. Didn't really want to fight Trey Browning over it. Let him go on the back straightaway. So Trey Browning picks up a position. He is at a race high P7 for him. Rabel drops back 1, but is still plus 17 from where he started. And you can see all of this going on down the back straightaway. Brandon Bowie underneath. A couple of lapped cars. The 12's there, 3 wide with the 15. He also wrapped around Matt Danson. The lapped cars down, mixed in with your race leaders. And now that becomes a very intense battle for the lucky dog, Nolan. That's a very interesting battle to watch. Cato and Danson are both 1 lap down, so the 05 and the 12 are fighting for the lucky dog. That's what we're watching right now.
And all of this while the battle for 3rd and 4th is trying to dice its way through, and you saw San Diego getting awfully close with Matt Danson's back bumper. Might have even thought about giving it to him down the front straightaway, but opted not to go for it. And throughout all of this, pit stops are still underway. Kuczynski is out at the moment in the lane, so is Lischinski. So you still got more and more drivers that are coming on down. Seems like about 40, maybe 50 laps into a run or so. This seems to be the golden point for people to want to come on down and make these stops.
And if you can go, I mean, you did have the yellow, so that aids your fuel mileage a little bit on the first stint. But of course, if you want to get to 167 laps, you're going to have to go about, I think, 60, well, no, you're going to have to go 56 laps, I think, is the number. Math might be wrong, but that's my guess. 56 is going to be the magic number. So, of course, I think some drivers pitting in now may just be doing so because of the tires. McBride's talking about that he's getting worse tire wear than everybody else, and you know, I feel like if drivers weren't going to be able to make it the 56, they'd all be in by now. So I think we'll be able to hit that number that I was kind of thinking about earlier, be able to do this on a 2-stopper with green flag pit stops. And
trouble front straightaway, Sheen's around. And
and Browning in the air. And just as we started to talk about racing this one out, second caution flag of the night, and that one involved playoff driver Liam Sheen. He doesn't get the brunt of it. Sheen drives away, but I think it started when Sheen made contact with the 12.
That's what I saw from up here. Looks like Kato just wasn't as eager to let them by as I think Liam Sheen might have expected. Taking a look at it now, and there you go. Sheen pushes up on the 12, spins Kato and Brownie. Innocent bystander hooks in the wall and goes flying almost the height of the catch fence. And once again, turtled on the front straightaway. Second time seen somebody. The first time was out of de Blasio, a playoff driver. This time it was Trey Brownie that ended up turtled on this roof. And all of that, Chris Rabel, well, he had the C's part 4.
Yeah, gotta be honest, I didn't think that we would have 2 cars on their lid in the opening 60 laps of Texas, but here we are. And good news for Liam Sheen is he walks away with relatively minor damage, and you can see he just goes up a little bit, makes contact with the 12 machine, gets spun around, and that one will go, I believe, since he hasn't claimed it yet, to a post-race review. So he feels like he wasn't the cause, and that one will get looked at extensively post-race if he doesn't claim it between now and then. Meanwhile, race leaders are on pit road. Only a couple of drivers had trickled in, so this is basically wholesale pit stops for the field, looking for 4 tires and fuel.
We're right at that number you have pointed out for the fuel window, so no doubt this could be a blessing in disguise for basically everybody up in the field here. And so far, it looks like everybody's able to get in clean to their pit boxes. No dramas thus far. 4 tires and a full tank. I would be very surprised if anybody were to take anything other than that.
It just lines up very easy. It keeps us in the fuel window, and there are no surprises on the race off of the pit lane there. Freenosh in first, Freenosh out first. Nice and easy, of course, with the benefit of having the number 1 pit stall. That's pretty easy work for him.
It's probably one of the easiest pit stops it is, not just to sight, but also to come into. Now, it's, of course, you know, some people might be saying, oh, it's easier to come on in for, you know, the first pit stop end line. I beg to differ. I think it's a lot more difficult, especially on a track like Daytona, where it's right there, so you have to start slowing down well below the pit road speed limit just in before, as opposed to coming into the one that's at the end of the pit road.
All fair points, and of course, as we get down to the end of this 2021 Cup Series, that means that the RealSimRacing Winter Series is back for the 2021-2022 season, and we are happy to welcome our new partners at Sim Speed Shop on board as the title sponsor of the 2021-22 RealSimRacing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. So that's going to be a very exciting campaign. It gets kicked off in a couple of weeks' time right here on RaceSpot TV. The action all starts, I believe, on Monday, November the 22nd. And of course, you can catch all 10 rounds of that championship right here on Monday nights on RaceSpot TV. If you are interested in competing in the RealSimRacing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series, for more information, you can log on to RealSimRacing.org. I know that priority registration, Olin, is currently open for active Cup Series drivers. I think about 29 of the 45 spots are claimed already in group number 1. This Wednesday, the rest of the Cup Series drivers who were originally waitlist drivers will have a chance to sign up. The following Wednesday, it'll be drivers still on the wait list that are able to sign up, and then if it's not full by then, the public gets a chance to sign up on November the 3rd. So if you want to get involved, that's RealSimRacing.org. You can also follow us on Twitter at RealSimRacing for the latest, but happy to have our friends at Sim Speed Shop on board. They manufacture sim racing hardware utilizing the best components available, and they mix in real-life components as well. So happy to have them on board, and happy to have more Real Sim Racing action coming up on RaceSpot TV this year.
I like it that the fact that you guys have, you know, this little bit of a winter series that takes place throughout the course of the offseason to make sure that there's always something going on. So when the Mid Cup Series ends, there doesn't need to be any tiers. You'll definitely be able to have all of the racing feel all the way throughout the winter. So it'll definitely be an interesting series to say the least, especially since I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that is running the Class B cars, is it not?
We are back in the NASCAR Xfinity Series cars, which I know a lot of drivers are a big fan of. That season will kick off at Daytona, and a lot of drivers have already been saying, "Don't let me." We're ready. I've seen paint scheme reveals already for the Winter Series on the Discord and on the Twitter. So drivers are certainly excited, and of course, those Xfinity Series cars are so much fun to drive. They're a big fan, favorite amongst the drivers.
It's a bit of an interesting one, isn't it? Because everybody I know absolutely despises the Xfinity cars, and I can't for the life of me figure out why. I'm one of the guys that actually tends to like them a lot, and I don't know, where everybody comes out and says, they're not fun. It must just be a preference thing, because I'm just glad there is such a good following for them, because they're fun cars to drive.
I guess if you hate horsepower, maybe you don't like the Xfinity cars. Other than that, I know there's a lot of drivers in this field who love those Xfinity cars, and Matt Danson going to fight to defend his Winter Series championship this coming winter. That being said, though, still a long way to go here tonight in the SimSeats 250. The pace car is back off and in, and Andrew Friedosh in control for the third restart of the afternoon. He goes early. Green flag is back in the air, and he's got a couple of car lengths off to turn number 1.
The typical mile-and-a-half start. Launch early, get the gap before anybody can get down to fill it up and beat you in the race down to turn number 1. It always gives you that much of an advantage. It's something that we typically see at any track that doesn't necessarily rely on the draft a whole lot. And at a track like this, the draft matters a whole lot in the early runs, but it definitely whittles away and becomes more a game of tires deeper on into these runs. So I think what Friedosh is thinking at the moment, if you can get out in front and stay out there long enough, maybe the tires will kick in enough that you won't have to worry so much about aerodynamics.
Looks like your top 4 cars have been able to single file themselves out, and very timely battle watching the Sim Speed Shops Chevy of Michael Araya make a pass and be able to pull away from 5th position. So your top 5 single file out. Chris Rabel able to win a battle there with Zachary Carr, so he goes to P6. And Carr now trying to hold off Agnel Phillip. He will do so. Phillip tucks in line in position number 8. So what we saw long on that run, Nolan, was that your race leaders were able to get that advantage early, right? They were able to get away, but then they really didn't grow it much after 20 laps on the run, right? Those cars from third on to back were pretty steadily within about a second and a half of the race leaders. So they had equal pace at that point. So what they're going to want to do on this next green flag run is not let Friedosh get that advantage.
The advantages can certainly be, a very crucial factor throughout the course of this race. Every little bit definitely helps, all of these drivers to get themselves sorted out, and it'll be an interesting run for sure throughout the end of this race. And it has been a much more tight restart so far all the way throughout this run. So far, we have been seeing a lot of the lead lap cars been able to stick with it so far, unlike in that first restart we had, where it got split apart very quickly. That has not been the case. Everybody's sticking single file, and that means this train, instead of going back to 8th place, it's back to about 17th.
And just watch it, but I was about to mention Tice, right? Because Tice was the guy who was with Friedosh running away with this thing and ends up third off for the restart. I mean, he's kind of the bubble driver in the midst of all of this, with Tice running in the number 3 position. You've got Bowie right there in the midst as well. And you got playoff cars back to the front 2 positions in this race, back in the order in which we started. So Bowie struggled opening restart. He's been better since then. Let's look at Chris Rabel on the outside. He was going to go to the outside of Araya. That would have made it a pretty sketchy 3-wide situation. Opted not to do it, and here comes Carr again. We'll see if that 26 car has been able to figure it out. The car just looks so unstable. I mean, one thing that people always talk about with this package is that the cars are stuck to the racetrack, but it just looks like the 26 is so twitchy, far more so than anybody else.
And for a lot of guys in the service, they might like that a little bit more. They like to have, the loose car setup, and that is, of course, where the love of the 87 cars comes in. It's not very fun though when you're the only one that is struggling with that problem while everybody else is, as you said, stuck to the track. So it's a problem that Zach Ricard and Natchez are trying to work out, and it wouldn't surprise me if you had been making a couple of adjustments under the caution flag period in an attempt to get that problem fixed. And he's not the only driver that's under fire. You see Sean Castill almost getting hooked by Dylan Jones on the front straightaway while they're both trying to pass around William Schmidt for 12th place on the outside.
This is the lead pack of cars. What a battle. The top 17 separated by just 2.5 seconds. And there is Schmidt across the top, clearing number 52 of Sean Casno. So give the 49 car now sole possession of the number 12 spot. He sets his sights on the 3. Phillips side by side with Rabel. 94 cars did an awfully good job of fighting through the battle wounds, and with Liam Sheen's most recent involvement in the caution flag Nolan that he did eventually claim and received an end of the longest line of penalty. Phillip now the third highest runner of the playoff drivers. Pretty good right now for him as we inch ourselves closer to halfway home.
And it is still a playoff driver 1-2 up in front with Freenosh and Bowie still holding strong. And starting to see there's a bit of that pack divide that we were seeing earlier on in the run as well. Right about 7th and 8th place. That's where it starts to play apart. Right around Chris Rabel. That is, of course, due in part to the fact that you've had a lot of the guys go side by side deeper in this pack, which has started to drive it back a little bit. And, well, about 45 minutes into this race, and just now we had 100 laps to go.
Well, double digits left on the scoring to pile on, and so far it has been the Andrew Freenosh show, but it has not been by a huge margin. This is a very competitive race. Look at all this. I mean, this is what NASCAR likes with this package, is all these cars close to one another. De Blasio's a lapped car on top. Don't worry too much about the 21 machine. He's now 6 laps down. Again, just trying to stay in this race and pick up some points when he is able to. But, looks like maybe the top 4 trying to get away a little bit. But, I mean, Laraya's right there in 5th. Nieto now trying to get around Agnew Phillip. Agnew Phillip was just able to shake off the 29 machine, but you want some more on the outside. Not clear yet. And he will tiptoe his way down in front of the 2. So Agnew Phillip now, another position gained. He's in the top 6.
Still deeper in the field, they're elected to go side by side. I'm looking at Eric Stanford trying to bend off Nick Silver, Jones, and Casto all in a fierce fight behind him for spots just inside and outside of the top 10. It's the only side-by-side battle that just now single files out as they duck back low into turn at number 3. You see there is Liam Sheen, who had that AOL penalty under this last caution flag. Still hanging on to the lead grouping, which is good to see. And the unfortunate thing for a lot of these guys who are trying to figure out is what do you do when lap traffic comes around. Thankfully, so far, guys like Rhett McBride, you can see up top, have been doing a good job on staying relatively out of the way. But sooner or later, it's only going to take one.
Unfortunately, I think a key as well is the lapped cars have been very aware, right? I mean, they just go way to the outside. Look at the 15 machine up there, McBride, right? I mean, nobody's running a racing line up on the fence, so Rhett, very respectful, moves up and out of the way, and he is able to get on through, and your race leaders are able to get by without much incident. The 52 of Casto has been another one of those drivers fighting through some damage tonight, but hasn't been that bad side by side with Dylan Jones right now for 12th and 13th position. You got Bradley Burke right behind them, just kind of watching things, and then Liam Sheen, of course, who's trying to make up positions after having gotten that end of the longest line of penalty for causing the most recent caution flag. So all of this going on, some 2.2 seconds off the race lead, no advantage to the inside or to the outside, and I mean, Casto is way up the hill in turns 1 and 2. Haven't really seen anybody working that high up. He's able to wind it up and get a run off of the corner, but I mean, maybe starting to experiment as some heat gets put into this racetrack. But, mostly if you're on the outside, you've been pinching guys down. So I have to think Casto just washed out a little bit there as opposed to that kind of being intentional. Let's see how high he goes to 1 and 2 this time.
Well, and you would think that would be the case, but it's been a somewhat consistent line that he had been running the last couple of laps. And, well, as I say that, Castro makes me immediately eat my words by pinching Dylan Jones down towards the apron. But I think you're right. Castro is trying to experiment a little bit here. He's trying to see what works and what doesn't. And sometimes you need to run a line for a couple of laps before you realize it's not going to work. But still, like Dylan Jones to check up a bit in turn 3. That will allow Castro back down in line. And on the right side of the screen, you can start to see the battle picking on up for P4 as Zachary Carr looks to make the pass back on Michael Araya.
Araya, somebody else, who we talk about drivers who can, get the job done when it matters the most. And it was so close to advancing into this round of 8. He was the first driver out. Missed it to Brandon DeBowie by 8 points. Both he and his Flat Out Motorsports teammate, Sam Nieto, were unable to advance into the next round of this championship. Of course, Flat Out has been second in the team standings for quite some time in this championship, and unfortunately just not able to take that little bit of an extra step, and Flat Out's hopes for fighting for a title came to an end at the end of that most recent round. But still a threat for any race win, still a threat, but he's got the speed that he has shown so far this afternoon. And watching this group here, Chambers going to lose out to the 19 cars, so Stanford's able to make the pass up top, and Rabel trying to use the bottom now to get a diagonal fill up. I mean, say what you will, Nolan, about Texas, but it at least looks like tonight that there's some semblance of multi-groove racing, right? I mean, I can't say for certain that if a guy gets to the outside of somebody, he's going to pass him or he's not, because there's cars making passes high and there's cars making passes low.
I think it honestly has to depend with how aggressive the driver up on top is going to want to be in pinching the guys down low further down. Because overall, so far the course of the night, the inside lane has been the fastest way around. The only point, though, where I've seen the outside line being able to make a reasonable push is either when they have to draft somebody that's right in front of them with the guy in the back lane, or if they pinch the guy down to the bottom down so much that they bail out on corner exit and lift off in order for them to slot into the middle groove on the back straightaway.
And there's the gap between the lead pack and the secondary pack. It's not a huge buffer, but this group of 6 is led by Dylan Jones. He rides in 11th position right now. He's ahead of Nick Silver in 12th, Sean Casto 13th, Bradley Burke 14th, Liam Sheen 15th, and William Schmidt in 16th position. Burke wants to move up a spot, though. He's trying to go around the long way on the 52 of Casto. Pushes up the hill. I think they touched 3 wide off of turn 4, but Liam Sheen backs out of it. He knows that he cannot afford to cause another yellow, and first I thought he was going to go for it, but he changed his mind at the last second.
I agree with you. I think there was a little bit of a touch as Sheen looks like he might have bobbled a bit onto the exit too, but managed to tuck up right in front of Bradley Burke. So Liam Sheen is looking aggressive here, trying to take whatever spots he can at the moment. That will put him up to 14th, and he's got 13th to Sean Castro now dead in his sights. But there was a little bit of a touch that, like you said, sent Sean Castro up the hill. Bradley Burke stuck with it though. And Liam Sheen had to back out from a 3 wide pass up the middle.
There's another little bit of a dive down to the inside in 3. Sheen was looking kind of like a half-lane block for the 52 of Casto, but stays in front. Sheen's got a lot more to lose here. He already claimed the 1 caution. He got it into the longest line penalty for that. If he does it again, that he would get a 1-lap black flag. Obviously something that he really can't afford at this juncture. So that's why maybe Sheen a little bit trepidatious with some of these aggressive moves, and Bradley Burke wanting to take advantage of it, trying to get to the inside at 1. Wasn't able to do so in that instance. I mean, Schmidt's right there. And then it falls off a little bit. Washington, Morano, Harris, Leschinski, Mara. The last car of the drivers on the lead lap. 21 cars still on the lead lap at this point, as we are officially halfway home in the sim seats 250 Nolan. So why not? Let's take a look top to bottom. We'll continue to watch the battles on track, but Let's take a look top to bottom at your SimSeats midway race break. So halfway through, Andrew Friedrich has been absolutely dominant thus far, leading all the way. And he's in front right now to the tune of about 0.3 of a second. It's growing a little bit because Brandon Bowie in second, currently in a fight with the 5 car of Joseph Tice, who's in third. They're just ahead of Michael Araya, P4, and then Zach Carr maybe solving some of those handling issues back inside of the top 5. Sam Nieto is behind them. He's in the number 6 position. Chris Rabel as well, 1.3 seconds off at the top spot in 7th. Agadil Phillip is right here in this train as well. He's 8th. Brian Chambers is in 9th. And at the back of the lead group is P10, Eric Stanford.
And then how about Dylan Jones? He started 28th on the night. He has now worked his way up 17 spots up to the 11th position. Part of that he's doing part of it was the 2 big record pads so far today, but potentially looking to make up a couple more if there's another one in that league grouping. Nick Silver is down in 12th place in the same grouping with Sean Casto down in 13th. Sheena 14th, excuse me, with Bradley Burke now down in 15th place. William Schmidt is in 16th place with David Washington over 17th in a bit of a no man's land. Tom Moreno and Cody Harris were close a few laps ago, but they are now spread apart again for 18th and 19th with Miroslav Chinsky down in 20th.
And continuing on through, as I mentioned, Matt Mara is the last driver on the lead lap in 21st position. Then Matt Danson's a lap down 22nd. He is in the lucky dog position and is currently running ahead of Ross Cato, also a lap down in 23rd. Michael Kuczynski rides 24th. Adam de Blasio is 25th. Eric McBride is 26th. He's 8 laps down. But Jared Winemaster recently to the garage in 27th. Trey Browning's also out of this race in 28th. So is Nick Mara, 29th. Brandon Six is 30th. Kyle Kamer, 31st. And the early retiree was Daniel Eberhard after that opening race incident back on lap number 3. He is dead last in 32nd position and is going to lose all the benefit he had of that slight 3-point bonus point advantage into tonight, likely to be at the bottom of the standings headed into Kansas. Let's look top to bottom at your SimSeats midway race break. Since 2009, SimSeats has been designing and fabricating high quality, made in the USA driving simulators, including motion systems, complete turnkey iRacing packages, and custom fabrication. Their customer base includes all racers from the amateur to the pro ranks, and everyone on the SimSeats team is a weekend racer too. Their passion for racing drives them to build better sim racing equipment. Join SimSeats for the thrill of racing at any time, in any car, and on any track by visiting sim-seats.com to learn more information. 77 laps to go from Texas Motor Speedway, 38 laps since our last pit stop. So not quite there yet, but approaching our fuel window to go the distance.
You were talking about it earlier tonight about how, around the 56 lap mark was probably going to be a good, range for drivers to try to go for the distance on fuel. They have so far been out there 35 laps, going on 36 this next time by. When you take that last caution flag into effect, it's probably more likely to be around 33 with all the fuel savings you can do under a caution flag period. So it has been so far a much cleaner run, I want to say, in this third run now. We saw the first run obviously ended in complete calamity on lap number 3. The second run had a lot of chaos in the midfield, but that got itself sorted on out. This third run, I believe, has been one of the most civilized we have seen so far today, and that is what's allowed this front pack to stay so strong. You've still got the top 10 all running in a line, and you've been seeing a couple of moves trying to go for positions, as we have just seen Zachary Carr look down the inside of Michael Araya, but there hasn't been anybody that's been willing to really throw it into these corners just yet.
And maybe that's the waiting game, right? I mean, it's tempting when you're only car length and a half off of somebody. But I talked about some of the restraint that we were seeing out of Liam Sheen from earlier on, and maybe that's a little bit of it as well, as nobody wants to take a misstep. They're happy that they're in this top 10 pack, and they're going to wait until that green flag pit cycle, like we kind of hypothesized about a little bit earlier. Maybe your opportunity to try something different, to separate yourself and give yourself a chance at fighting for the race lead, because Andrew Friedrich is not untouchable in this race, Nolan, right? I mean, he's right there. I mean, the view you're looking at is off of the back bumper of that 88 Ford with the SimRacer film on board his Mustang. So he's not checked out. But there certainly is a big advantage to being the lead car in a line and having the clean air.
Oh, absolutely. It means that you're able to kind of not have to suffer throughout all of the dirty air that drivers behind you are having to deal with. Guys like Brandon Bowie are no doubt trying to work with. And it's probably why we haven't seen a lot of guys trying to make these little moves to the position. But it has also meant, because of the draft that you have further down the field, Freelash has not been able to get away. And we talked about this before, but it's going to take one lap. Freelash pushing a little bit too wide, maybe nicking the outside wall. And that field is going to run up on him, and he will be a sitting duck.
Well, let's enjoy some of the sights and sounds of the virtual Texas Motor Speedway and crank things up a little bit with some good old-fashioned RaceSpot TV fan immersion. There are 72 laps to go in the SimSeats 250. That was almost bad for Liam Sheed back there, battling in the number 15 position. And as we cycle back through to the race-leading battle here, it is Zachary Carr trying to get underneath the 44 machine of Michael Araya, unable to do so that time. He will tuck back in line, reset, and try again. Here comes a challenge on the 5 car, though. Laraya going to be the one on the attack. He's to the inside of Joseph Tice. Is he clear in turn number 1? Yes, he is. Michael Laraya drives to 3rd. And after seemingly being the rock-solid P2 car in this field, on that second stint of the race, Joseph Tice slipped back to P4.
And that was one of the first passes that we've been seeing in this leading group here for about the last 10, 20 laps or so. Up until that point, everybody in this field has been looking to be, just kind of settling back into the rhythm of things. You have a couple of looks here or there, but nothing too serious. That was the first major challenge for a run we've seen so far, and Laraya puts himself up into a podium position now. So let's see the looks be made further down the order. Now it's Zachary Carr trying to make that move still 4th place, but instead it's Joseph Tice he's having to work with, and a bad entry to turn 3 compromises him. That checked up the line, and here comes Chris Rabel down the inside of San Diego. He will try to pick up P6 down to the turn number 1.
Rabel's another guy who has had many good runs this year, looking to get that little bit more Advit is his number 29. Century Communities Ford Mustang. Not with the momentum that time down the back straightaway. Nieto's able to clear him. Brian Chambliss going to try to wind it up. The outsider Racing Chevrolet for HBR. Top side, unable to get the speed he needs. They will be deadlocked at nose-to-nose in that battle. Up front, Bowie now. De Blasio, I mean, trying to work around some lap traffic there. The 21 car stays high. It won't be an issue, but this group right here, all this side by side, they're still 2x2 when they get to De Blasio. Might put them 3 wide. Let's see how they navigate it. They single file out just in time to sneak underneath that 21 Chevy.
I tell you what, huge props out in De Blasio for having the ability to stick with this one. I mean, he is now, we're talking 9 laps down, and this was after he found himself on his lid and turtled on just the 3rd lap of the race. But it is because he decided to stick with it that he worked up from what could have been a 31st place finish, now up to 25th. Those are a few extra crucial points for Adam De Blasio, especially around now.
There are 62 laps to go this time by. Race leaders have been on this set of tires for 50 laps. So 6 more laps and we'll be at the midway point. And I think the bank will be open. Now, of course, it's a little bit of a peculiar spot to be in, right? Green flag pit cycle, always a chance that something could happen. So that may deter some drivers from going for the undercut. They might actually want to stay out and hope to catch a yellow that way to gain an advantage. But I would expect a guy like Friedrich to come in just maybe a little bit past that 6-lap number that I gave out there and just kind of play it safe. He has slowly been inching away from Brandon Bowie and Lariah. They sit 2nd and 3rd. Still well within striking distance. Remember how I said you want to be within 4 or 5 seconds, but that's a realistic number to be able to make something happen on pit cycles. It's only 4/10 up. So any sort of undercut could make Friedrich deal with traffic. And I mean, this is always a question, and it's a conversation you hear all the time, right? You know, in NASCAR races, I mean, you got the guy up front. When you're in clean air, you're not really adjusting your car, and then you find yourself in traffic, right? Can you make the moves? Friedrich has not had to make a pass really tonight. So if I'm these guys, I want to go for the undercut, put him in traffic, and make him have to work for it, right? See how that 88 car is in traffic, and just make him work for it. That's all you can do. You can't take the speed out of Andrew Friedrich, but you can make him work for it. And so far, he's been pretty much unchallenged, despite the fact that he hasn't really run away that much.
I mean, he has led just about every single lap so far in this race, so Friedrich has definitely been the driver to beat so far all the way throughout the night, and we continue to get closer and closer to that pit window. We're pretty much right in it at the moment. They've been out there now for about 53 laps on these runs, 58.5 laps remaining. I think they're trying to push about another 2 or 3, and then we're going to see pretty much everybody hit pit road, because that is about where you're going to be coming on in with the exact amount of fuel to make it to the end of this race. So the reality, that last caution as a result, it really came out of a bit of a perfect time to make it an easy one-stopper.
Yeah, we were waiting on guys to come down anyways, so it didn't change the strategy all that much. Still a 2-stop race. It just happened that one of them ended up under the caution flag, and maybe for some drivers that ends up being a good thing, but for others, I think they would have preferred to have the chance to do it on green flag pit stops, simply because, of course, you could make up some time on entry, and you could be the driver to benefit if somebody else has some sort of an issue. But yellow flag pit stops, pretty clean, pretty uneventful, and everybody did their job. Nobody made any major mistakes, and the running order pretty much stayed the same. Lead pack is still the top 10 drivers. Stanford the caboose. This is it. Top 10 cars, all within 2.2 seconds of race leader Andrew Friedrich. Will update you on where your playoff drivers are running. In the first race of this round of 8, Andrew Friedrich, the lead playoff guy, and did Brandon Bowie just miss pit road? There is a problem for the 34 Toyota. I think he missed pit road, trying to surprise undercut Andrew Friedrich, and he missed it. And he just threw away a top 10 car.
And he is losing so much time as a result. Take another look at it here. This will tell the story. Sure enough, there he is on the brakes, trying to get down and just can't get down in time.
Not even
and
close.
And on cue, Oh, Freenach slides it into pit road, just barely slows his car down in time. So it's a nasty pit entry for Freenach, who smokes up all 4 tires. And tell you what, this is bad news for the field. If they want to go for the undercut, that chance has just been washed away.
And it is wholesale service. There's the onboard replay of how sideways Freenach was onto the pit lane. Look at that white line on his splitter. He is about an inch away from having overshot his box, but he's in. Bowie's in, Carr's in, Rabel's in, Morano's in, and it is a clean stop for Freenach. And that may be the race decided to move. Bowie knew he had to go for the undercut. He tried it, and he missed it. And you can see Brandon Bowie now also exiting the pit lane that time. No surprise that his answer was to immediately come back down to the pit lane because of how much he flat spotted those tires. And we'll see where he ends up, but certainly not thinking it's going to be a chance for the race win. There's Joseph Tyson in the box, Michael Araya, Sam Nieto, Bradley Burke, and Eric Stanford all decided to come down to the pit lane with him, and Brian Chambliss has led a lap. I'm curious if Agnell Philip Nolan in second place is going to want to stay out and lead a lap to snag a bonus point, which could prove huge in this round. Curious if that's the goal for the 94 or if he'll be in before Chambliss is.
That is, of course, going to be the very big question. No doubt that Agnell Philip was playing on as well, but so far that 94 car has opted not to come down to pit road, staying out there with Brian Chambliss as these pit stops get set to really dice the field up now, and Cody Harris just made his call to come down to pit road. So there's now only going to be 5 cars on the lead lap. And all 5 cars have not pitted. And trouble as well. Matthew Morrow getting a rear end of the front straightaway. William Schmidt getting into it big time. No caution as Morrow skates through the grass. That almost was caution number 3, which would have been a dream situation for Chambliss.
Yeah, that was almost horrible, and William Schmidt got some pretty major damage from that one as well. Burke saying over the radio, I didn't ever get to check up, but Mara's just on old tires. I mean, that's the speed difference. There's the touch. There's Schmidt getting a piece of it as well. Mara goes through the grass, and a great recovery. But man, could that have been big. David Washington now is off and away to pit road. There are only 5 cars on the lead lap. Andrew Freenach, the net race leader. He's about 2 seconds and change ahead of Zachary Carr, who looks like will be the driver cycling through to P2, Nolan. And just when we thought that maybe a pit cycle was going to be the thing that could allow these other drivers, I mean, there were 10 cars in the lead pack. You would think that one of the 9 not named Andrew Freenach could have done something, right? And all that has come out of this is Andrew Freenach was about 4 tenths ahead. Now he's more than 2 seconds ahead of the next closest driver. So he has only used this to further his advantage. So Chambliss is in, and as I suspected, Agnell Philip stays out. He's your new race leader. That's a bonus point secured for the playoff driver. I would expect him to pit this time now that he's got the point.
I'm going to be honest. I'm thinking back about Andrew Freenach's decision to come down pit road. I wonder if that was in reaction to Bowie missing pit road, was trying to kind of see what the rest of the field would do. And the instant he saw Bowie try to undercut and miss the pits, that's when it came on down. Because as soon as he saw Bowie missing it, that's when he made a rather frantic call to come on in. So I'm wondering if it was in reaction to that or if that was his plan all along.
I think once he saw the drivers were going to start to think about undercutting him, Bowie didn't tell anybody he was going to pit, right? Bowie tried to surprise everybody. Once one driver shows their card, I think everybody else was going to be in, and I'm with you. I think Freenach was going to come in pretty much around then anyways. But I think once he saw Bowie try that, he knew he was coming down pit road because he does not need anybody undercutting him. Because like I said, what do you need to do? Just put him in traffic. Make him work for it. Make him uncomfortable. They were unable to do that. Dylan Jones has cycled through to the race lead. He will come down pit road this time, and it will handily hand things off to Freenach at about 20 seconds. Dylan Jones is still going to lead this lap. Actually, maybe not, because his pit stall is shy of the start-finish line, but Andrew Freenach is still way around in turns number 3 and 4. Agnell Philip will now cycle himself back out and onto the racetrack. Freenach leads lap number 120. And back to the race lead is the number 88 Ford. Freenach set up beautifully. 1.8 seconds ahead of Zach Carr and 48 laps away from guaranteeing himself a spot in the Championship 4 in hopes of becoming an unprecedented 4-time consecutive champ.
And of course, you talk about how crazy this round of 8 could be, and to get yourself locked in these first 2 races at Kansas and Texas is absolutely crucial. Martinsville, I'm going to be honest, I don't care how big of a points gap you have. That is the last race to not already be confirmed locked in for the next round, just because of how volatile of a race Martinsville can be. It is so easy not just to be taken out, but to lose laps, even just overall pace-wise over Martinsville, with how narrow of a track it is, how fast of a track it is. It's not a track that you necessarily want to be uncertain going into. We talked about that at the start of the broadcast. We're going to be talking back at it at the beginning, but it is critical to get yourself locked in here tonight. And like you pointed out, Freenach has been set up beautifully for it. And with 1.8 seconds, I think people are going to need a caution in order to catch him by the end of this race.
The last couple of laps, Zach Carr has been better than Freenach, but Freenach is somebody who is known to just kind of work the pace that he needs, save it for the end of the run, whereas I'm sure Zach Carr is digging a lot harder right now in the 26 machine. But just worth noting, the gap is 1.6 seconds, and Carr has been the better of the 2 last couple of times around. A couple of drivers still need to come down pit road in this race. Brett McBride's not going to make it to the end of the race. I don't believe that Nick Mara is able to. They may be a little bit closer, but Adam de Blasio is going to have to pit. So a couple of drivers towards the rear will still have to trickle their way down to the pit lane for service. Just keep it in mind of that. But now we kind of wait and see, right? I mean, there's still a lot to fight for. This group here is for 3rd on back. I mean, all these cars stayed grouped up, Nolan. It was only Freenach who was able to pull away. And, you know, the answers don't lie in what happened on pit road. Freenach had the fastest pit lane time out of anybody inside of the top 10. He was on pit road for 38.4 seconds, and he was in the stall for 14.6. 14.6 actually kind of middle of the road, but that tells me, you know, he wasn't that much quicker on pit road. So where does it come from? It was very clearly that entry that almost cost him, right? We got that second look. I mean, he was locked up and slotting, but I suppose if you're not pushing it that hard, then you're just giving away free time.
Well, and I mean, in all fairness, you're throwing the tires away anyway about 10 seconds later, so you may as well smoke them up one last time when you're coming on down to the pit lane to maximize the entry. And those kinds of sliding pit entries, they are very commonly seen at tracks like Daytona, like Talladega, Auto Club, Michigan, you name it. Not so common mile and a halves, but every now and again, you get those drivers that like to gamble, and as we've seen in the past, Freenach, I think, definitely falls under that category.
Just tracking, you know, what's going on with some of the other playoff guys. Danson, of course, has had damage all night. He's in the 20s. De Blasio is still in it. Credit to him. 9 laps down in 25th position, so he has made up about 4 points from if he had just parked the car from other drivers DNFing. So just make a mental note that if de Blasio is somehow able to points his way into the Championship 4 and it is by less than 4 points, him sticking it out and running this race with a race car that is significantly off pace just to get that little bit more could prove to be the difference maker. Is underneath Rabel, here comes Michael Laraya, side by side in a battle for 3rd spot. He's not going to get clear though, and Rabel will fight back.
So Rabel will try to fight that top line through 1 and 2, but just doesn't have it. Laraya already clear before they even get to the center of the corner. And San Vieto looks like he will be allowing Chris Rabel in. And you see at the very end of that line, that is Brandon Bowie, the 2nd highest driver in the playoffs coming into today's race thus far. And I have have to wonder how it all went kind of so, I don't want to say wrong for Brandon Bowie, but let's say taking a bit of a turn for him. Because remember, at one point, it was a 1-2 playoff driver position for some time. There was that pass for second, but Bowie was still running the comfortable third. So I'm honestly curious to know that despite having, you know, comparable pit stop times to everybody else and having among the shortest times on pit road, how he fell somehow from 3rd to 7th.
It's tough. I mean, we've seen the same thing with Tice, right? I mean, Tice, I mentioned earlier, kind of seemed like the surefire P2 car in this race. He was the one that was able to break away with Friedosh early, and it's not saying that he can't still get it. In fact, he's trying to get underneath Sam Nieto right now for P5, but went from 2nd to 3rd, and after this pit cycle, down to P6. So just losing that little bit by little bit. Of course, Bowie's drop, much more significant in terms of the playoffs, because burning 6 points, and I think most importantly, kind of drop it out of contention to fight for the race win here. If you get a restart, you get a yellow. P2, yeah, you got a chance at Andrew. P7, maybe a little bit more work, so that's certainly the bigger picture championship-wise, but look at this, 3 wide. Bowie thinking about it, trying to go down underneath the 5 and the 2. Will he stick the nose in there? No, he does not. He will wait, but I mean, Bowie's certainly itching to make up for some of those spots lost. He was, again, great on pit road, so the time that he lost must have been on the in-lap and the out-lap.
I'll tell you what, he certainly tried to throw his nose down the inside. That just comes into the fact that when you're being pinched down and that you cannot get on the throttle to push out to the outside walls. A problem that drivers have been struggling with all night long. You're going to see Bowie try it again in 1 and 2, but it's going to be a similar story. Tice pushes down. So Bowie can't get on throttle as much as he would have liked. Closing up a little bit too much the 1/4 exit, nearly dooring Tice up to the wall. But Brandon Bowie is showing that he wants that position. He's going to try to get the pass done for P6. Joseph Tice, though, is looking to fight this one, though. Around the outside line, he's got the run down the front straightaway.
Got the advantage. Can he put the pass on using the outside line? No. Bowie clears. Will there be a cross off of 2? No opportunity. Parked it in the middle of the road. Now the 5 car looks underneath. Tice now going to try it on the inside of Brandon Bowie. Bowie's going to want to wind it up. A little bit of a pinch, but he gives the 5 car plenty to work with. And the runoff of the corner slightly in favor of the 34. Half a car length advantage between these two. Shorter way around the quad oval for the 5. They are nose to nose in a battle for position number 6 and 7. But they're allowing the cars ahead of them, Nolan, to pull away as they fight with each other.
Oh, and that's a chop from Brandon Bowie on Joseph Tice coming down to the turn number 3. Bowie did not want to leave any room for Joseph Tice. I'm feeling as soon as he heard that spot say clear, he made that jump big time to the inside, trying to keep Joseph Tice at bay. And well, as aggressive as they may have been, you can see the results. It certainly worked. Joseph Tice is now effectively going to be stuck in P7 for the time being.
And no surprise there, a lot of drivers are actually asking if they could go below that white line on the apron in this race, right? Not a super speedway track, it's an intermediate, so technically there's no yellow line rule, and there was a lot of nuanced talk about, you know, how low are we allowed to go on the track. I haven't seen anybody really use it, but just goes to show you these drivers came into this race knowing that they were probably going to be very aggressive. So but the battle for 6 and 7 simmers down for a moment up the road. A couple more battles developing. Zachary Carr, remember, once upon a time, was closing in on Friedosh, but we said, yeah, don't read too much into it because, well, that's Andrew just managing the race car. Well, Zachary Carr started to slip a little bit. He's 2 seconds off of the race leader. And there is that blue Chevrolet of Michael Araya closing in, and he is knocking on the door. He'll be making a play for P2 here shortly, as they're both about 2 seconds off of the race leader.
Part of the problem that Zachary Carr had, he used all of his stuff up early in the runs. Exactly like I said, these guys that have to watch out for. Zachary Carr fell for those. Friedosh kind of backed off, so when Friedosh started to turn it up a little bit, Zachary Carr didn't have anything left in the tank to give. He ended up just falling back on the worn rubber. That has forced him to fall into the clutches of Michael Araya, who has been following a similar strategy to Friedosh. Backed it off a bit for the early runs. Let the track and the tires come to you before properly starting to push when it actually matters for a position later on in the run. Now, they are both losing a bit of time. Back to Chris Rabel and San Nieto just in behind. And there's about a second separating Laraya and Rabel as well on the track at the moment.
27 laps to go in the SimSeats 250, the opening race on the round of 8 in these 2021 SimSeats RealSimRacing Cup Series playoffs. Andrew Freenosh looking for a third race win of these playoffs in a series best 7th on the year if he could do it. But watching these two on each other's door as they come by the start-finish line. Liszczynski, somebody who was, I think, talking a little bit earlier about trying to get to pit road. That's not going to work. He's sideways. Caution. Wow. At lap 1:41. And this changes everything.
How about a save from Mariusz Liszczynski, though? That car shot sideways, and I'm going to be honest, that was brewing for about a lap and a half already. They got into it a little bit entering turn 1. The lap prior, they almost made contact, and then they almost made contact again down the back straightaway entering turn 3, again off of 4, and it finally all came together down in turn 1. Freenosh was very, very lucky to get around that one. Was 3 wide on the bottom trying to get around them at the moment, and even Zachary Carr was calling out that Andrew is a lucky duck at the moment.
Yeah, Freenosh had just gone to the inside of that battle, and you'll see it again. They go into the corner, 6 car pushes up once, twice, and you know, maybe the 6 of Cody Harris, Nolan feels like that the Go 3 should have given him more space, but I think the 6 had plenty to work with there.
I have to agree, and I can tell you right now, the second piece of contact was definitely unintentional. You can tell that from the start. After the first contact, you know, Harris got loose. He got sideways. It happens. Overcorrected and just shot back into him. Nothing the 0-3 could do after the first piece of contact. It's almost inevitable to have happen. I think Harris was trying to stay wide to allow Freenosh through on the bottom, being a lap car, but I'd say it's more important to focus on your own battle first and let the leaders work their way around you.
Here we go. Race leaders to pit road. They have a full set of tires available. They've been out there for about 30 laps. I would expect most of them to go for the stop of 4. Let's see. Freenosh going to go the left side, now jacked up, so he will go for 4 tires at fuel. He'll handily win the race off of the pit lane, and that will cycle him back out into 2nd place because the number 3 of Nick Silver has stayed out for the moment, and I believe this is likely a play, Nolan, for Silver to get a bonus point because that number 3 car is pretty torn up. Problem is, Freenosh crossed the start-finish line that last lap on pit road before Silver did on the racetrack. So Freenosh was credited with leading the last lap. If Nick Silver pits right here, he won't even get a bonus point for a lap led, so it may have been a good idea, but not sure it'll work out for the 3, because I think you got to pit now, or if you stay out to get the bonus point, you would pit it on a closed pit.
It's a very tricky deal for Silva to have to deal with. We're going to have to see if he gives up that or if he opts to kind of go down, and it looks like he will be taking the trip down to pit road. So that is going to be the case. Nick Silver down pit lane, and well, how about speeding?
Can he lead the lap, though? That's what he wants.
He got it.
Lap led.
He got it.
Nick Silver.
Well, so now you're the rule book man about this. So now I have to ask you a question. Obviously, that was a bit intentional, 20 miles over the speed limit. Is there a rule that says you deliberately cannot do that, or is that fair play?
I mean, if you really wanted to say that I guess you could, if it was like somebody intentionally taking a spot for at the end of the championship, that it maybe, but I can promise you there is no explicit rule that you cannot speed on pit road to get a bonus point. That's a give and take, right? He feels like dropping it again to the line and serving a speeding penalty is worth the price of admission. Get a bonus point. That's a calculated move by Nick Silver, so I got nothing against it. That's some ingenuity right there.
And I mean, to be fair, it's not like there was anybody else at the pit row. There's only the one guy that was right in front of him. He made that pass on the left before they even got to the used up pit stalls. So fair play. I mean, have at it. You got to do what you got to do, right?
Hey, more credit to him, right? I'm all about drivers getting some creativity into the mix. And of course, with Nick Silver securing the bonus point, he has served his speeding penalty. Key for him is he does not lose the lead lap status, right? That was another thing. If he had just came down pit road Nolan at 120 miles an hour, he would have got an excessive speeding in the pits penalty. Because he only did about 70, because of that, he's in a position where he actually, doesn't get an excessive speeding in the pits penalty, just a speeding in the pits penalty. And because of that, he is able to serve the penalty on pit road and not lose lead lap status. So very smart, Nolan, right? Not only to just do the move in general, but also to have only sped by so much that his penalty doesn't take him off of the lead lap. So, hey, give credit to him. I think that's probably the first time I've seen that one.
And you and me both. Well, I mean, hey, they always say you can never really see it all in racing. And that statement continues to ring true. Just when you think you've seen it all, somebody will find a way somehow to bring out something you have never seen in your life. And I think that, well, that is my new thing that I've seen for the day.
Today I learned, right? You would think that when you do so many of these broadcasts that you've seen it all. Today I learned. Nick Silver, remember that one point if it comes down to it a little bit later on. Well, let's hit the reset button. Everybody's got 4 freshies, and we are coming to a restart with 21 laps to go. Andrew Friedrich is in control of the field with 21 to go. Green flag back in the air.
Friedrich well and truly clear down into turn number 1. Sean Casto, what happened to the 52 car? Dropping back like a stone from 4th place. He's 3 wide and trapped on the outside alongside Joseph Tyson Stanford. He gets clear into turn 3, so somehow something went horribly wrong for Sean Casto. Finds himself on the cusp of the top 10, and it's a hornet's nest down into turn number 4 with 20 to go.
He got Keselowski. I mean, that was very similar to the Jeff Gordon, Brad Keselowski incident. What was it, back in 2014? And it just so happened to be the 2 of Sam Nieto. There was a little bit of an opening that Sean left into 1. Sam put the nose in there, touched, and it moved the 52 out of the way. Fortunately for Sean Casto, he can't go full Jeff Gordon and lose the tire and spin it out. But, I mean, man, was that similar? And look out for the 25. Brian Chambliss is way out of shape. He got the apron on the inside of Nieto in a battle for 5th and nearly spun his car out.
And all of this, Michael Araya mounted a charge for the race lead. Friedrich is not on top anymore. The 44 car working the top side on a turn number 2 and trying to do the same in 3 and 4. But on the fresh rubber, that inside line is still the place to be through turns 3 and 4. But watch as they come around 1 and 2 onto the back straightaway. And it might be a change for the race lead, and it might be official if Laraya can get clear. But that's going to be the big ticket question. Can he get clear down the back straightaway?
And don't look now, but Brandon DeBuey, fellow championship driver, in the mix as well. He's in 4th. Carr sits 3rd. The 26 opts to go to the inside with Friedrich, and after almost being clear, Laraya loses a lot that time at the outside of 3 and 4. He'll drop all the way to 3rd. And will that be it? Can they get back to Friedrich? Zach Carr gonna take a look. He gets loose in 1, and now Andrew starts to open it up.
You still see Carr slicing and dicing all the way throughout the field. Bowie to the inside of Laraya. He will pick up P number 3. So Brandon Bowie was dropped all the way down to 7th place on that last run. Worked his way to 6th, and he is back now up into 3rd with just 1 car between himself and the race leader. And that, of course, is Zachary Carr, a driver that has been runner-up so far so many times today.
I just have to feel, Nolan, for how many times Freenosh has had cars on his bumper, but they haven't been able to do anything with him, that the second he cleared Lariah that time, that it may have been it. Zach Carr's going to give it his best. I'm not discrediting the 26, but they just have not been able to get, I was about to say multiple looks at Freenosh tonight. They haven't been able to get any looks at Freenosh tonight until just then. And can they claw back at this thing? They are far from done. 15 laps to go. Look behind them. Magno Phillip a little bit loose at turn number 2. He blocks to the inside to try to hold off the 19 at Stanford. That appears to work for the time being.
And just in further behind, you see Dylan Jones losing another spot to Joseph Tice down the turn number 1, though. Jones will try to work that outside line, and you never know. It's just these little things that can make or break a race. Joseph Tice is able to get clear, and you see Jones looking for the bottom, but not going to be able to look for the position to go back forward. So Joseph Tice up into lead number 9. Now trying to run down Stanford up in front, and all of this, Freenosh has not been able to get away from the top grouping, but one thing to stay with the leader. It's another thing entirely to pass him, especially here.
That is the key, and look at them all on the very inside on the white line doing their very best to give as little off-throttle time as possible. So much momentum is necessary. When you're up front, you can't afford any sort of a hiccup. And for Carr, it's especially challenging because of all the dirty air that he's going to be working with in the number 2 spot. Any mistake, right? Any extra little feather probably costs you a whole lap, if not 2, to build that momentum back up. And as somebody who I mentioned earlier, Nolan, was at the Cup race yesterday at Texas, it's a thing I saw a lot with guys trying to get to Kyle Larson on restarts, right? They could stick with him, but aside from immediately after the restart, you just could not establish position on that lead car. Lap traffic up the road. We'll see if de Blasio can stay out of the way. Car to the inside in turn 1. The door was open for a moment, but Freenosh slams it shut.
And because Carr compromises his turn 1 entry, look at how big the gap is now after Andrew Freenosh. Bowie's done waiting. He's going to try to look down the inside of Zachary Carr, but that pass just can't go anywhere. So Adam de Blasio is going to be up on the top side. The leaders will get through him without incident. But that has caused quite the gap now to form up to your race leader. I wonder if that is enough for Freenosh to start to pull away.
He is now 2/10 up. The advantage is about 4 car lengths. It's the biggest it has been since the restart. Inside of 10 laps to go now in the sim seats 250. Freenosh, Carr, Bowie sitting 1, 2, and 3. Your top 4 playoff drivers, Freenosh, Bowie, Phillip, and Sheen. If the running order holds, those would be the playoff drivers above the cut line out of this race. Of course, Freenosh could lock himself in to that championship 4 race in Phoenix if he could hang on for a couple more miles. Carr, though, slowly building that momentum back up. Had a bit of a help there as Bowie was pushing him down the back straightaway. Zach Carr may get one last look. If he can get within that car length, he can do what he did last time, and that is drive it in real hard into 1. Just get alongside the 88 and then see what happens from there.
So about 11 miles left with 7.5 laps left to go in the race. Freenosh still working out in front. You can see Carr in second, Boo in third, but I don't know. I mean, we've been seeing this so far all race long. This has been the trend. You'll get this long train, but unless it's early in the run, just nobody can establish enough speed to be able to properly mount a charge. It's not like some tracks like Talladega. It's just outside of that, really. You can get close enough to get to the bumper, but you can't get close enough to be able to initiate and complete a pass, which makes me wonder, do we see the bumper being used?
We'll see. What is it worth? And of course, for Zach Carr, he's a non-playoff driver. How aggressive would he be with Freenos? For Brandon Bowie, he's got a lot more on the line. He's got to run. He is looking to the inside for P2, but the entry was too shallow. Not going to happen. Car gets thrown off a 2. He has to hit the reset button. Lariah right there as well in 4th. The lead back is some 10 cars strong if you go all the way back to Joseph Tice. But Andrew Freenos too far still. 5 laps to go this time by. We may be watching a fight for second on back instead of the top spot.
I'm going to be honest. I have a feeling that I think Zach Carr kind of shot the field of the foot when he tried to make that pass into turn number 1 several laps ago. How about Lariah with an outside charge? Bowie gets loose, and here goes Nieto going to mount another charge to try to push his way back up to P number 4. Didn't think Lariah would actually be able to make that pass. This is the first time we've seen that. A guy initiate a pass on the outside into turn 1 and complete it by the time they get to corner exit on the same tires.
When they get to the white flag, this race is official. You can see Bowie on the bottom side under fire. Here comes on the outside Sam Nieto fighting back now. Looked like Bowie had secured the pass on the inside, but Nieto's not going to give this one up. He tries again in 3 and 4. The 34 is clear for the moment, and Nieto a little bit sideways that time. Scuffs off some speed with now 3 laps to go.
And I believe too little time for Zachary Carr to be able to work his way back up to Andrew Freenos. I think you're right. It's going to be a battle for second instead of for the win if Freenos can just keep it clean and not make any mistakes. Lariah still has a huge shot of being able to pick up a second place finish here from Zachary Carr. That's 26 cars so far. He's been doing a good job of trying to keep Lariah at bay, but you can't hold him off forever.
You can't, and you can try and try again, but the question is, again, how aggressive are you going to be? Does Michael Lariah want to risk a solid points night? I mean, this is a real good night for him, right? Michael Lariah trying to fight for the race win here. Of course, felt like maybe he should still be in this championship. Or does he feel like, listen, I'm out of this and I don't care about the points. Let's do it, right? He and Zach Carr, Brandon Bowie behind, really wanting to hang on to position number 4 as well. It's going to be a great night for he, Phillip, and even Liam Sheen, who's nearly back into the top 10 with all the major issues. For some of the other playoff drivers tonight with a white flag in the air, top 10 finish, big, headed into Kansas next week. Final time, attitude, down the back straightaway. Zachary Carr had his looks, but in the end, the 88 car, too much to tame on the top of the board. It'll be his 7th win of the season, and he will fight for the 4-peat. Andrew Freenos wins at Texas and advances to the Championship 4 in 2021.
And Dylan Jones backwards through the infield as he came across the line, lost it by himself out of turn number 4, but that is a wrap on what overall was a rather thrilling race from the Texas Motor Speedway.
Pretty exciting. Of course, we had green flag runs and other things into the mix, but as always, late race drama to shake things up. But in the end, fastest car wins the race. I think that's the key here, and Andrew Freenos gets the job done, and he'll do his signature reverse victory lap to celebrate this one. The 3-time reigning champion is going to go for the 4-peat. What a job for Andrew Freenos. Let's take a look at your SimSeats full race results as Freenos waves to the virtual crowd here in Fort Worth, Texas. His final margin of victory, 0.308 seconds. Atop Zach Carr in 2nd and Michael Lariah in 3rd as he burns it down. Those drivers will be on the podium, and we'll be talking with all of them in just a few minutes. Brandon Bowie, Sam Nieto round out your top 5. Chris Rabel, P6. And how about the night for Agnell Phillip? Finishes 7th with damage. He beats out Joseph Tice, Eric Stanford, and Dylan Jones, the top 10.
And you can see those top 10 drivers up onto the screen now. And down in the 11th place, it is, of course, going to be Liam Sheen, about another 2.4 seconds back from the top 10. Brian Chambliss was down in 12th place with Brad DeBurke in 13th. David Washington was over there in the 14th position with William Schmidt down in 15th. Nick Silver was in 16th. Sean Casto finished it out in 17th. And Tom Miranda was the last up to speed car, so to speak. He was all the way down at 18th place, 8.6 seconds behind the leader. From there, almost falling a lap down was, of course, Cody Harris and Mariusz Liszczynski.
And the last driver on the lead lap was Matt Danson, so he gets a couple more points out of this one, racing out the likes of Mara and Cato. Michael Kaczynski comes home in 24th position ahead of Adam de Blasio, 25th. Rhett McBride, Jared Winemaster, rest of these cars all in the garage. Trey Browning, Nick Mara, Brandon 6th. And of course, the big storyline, Kyle Kamer 31st, but Daniel Eberhardt 32nd. He goes from being the guy who was locked in at the start of the last round to being the guy who may already have to start thinking about a must-win situation in this one. So let's talk at the bottom at your SimSeats full race results since 2009. SimSeats has been designing and fabricating high-quality, made-in-the-USA driving simulators, including motion systems, complete turnkey iRacing packages, and custom fabrication. Their customer base includes all racers from the amateur to the pro ranks, and everyone on the SimSeats team is a weekend racer too. Their passion for racing drives them to build better sim racing equipment. Join SimSeats for the thrill of racing at any time, in any car, and on any track by visiting sim-seats.com to learn more. Well, he has stood by, Nolan. Looks like he's trying to drive himself into victory lane here at the Texas Motor Speedway. So while we wait on talking to our top finisher, I'll hand things off to you. You've got our third and second place finishers, first starting with tonight's P3 winner. That is Michael Orion, as they say that. I think we got Andrew. So let's jump to victory lane here first now that we've got him with us, and we'll chat with the other drivers in a moment. Andrew, congratulations on the race win here tonight in the SimSeats 250. You are locked in to the championship 4 once again. How's it feel?
How about that, Evan? I wasn't looking forward to this race at all, and I practiced my butt off. I've never practiced so much more for a mile and a half on this package, and I can't believe it. I have never been locked in the first race. I can put all my focus on the Phoenix. I'm ecstatic. My goal every year is to make the Final Four, so I feel like I accomplished that. I'm just ecstatic.
Tell us about this one. I mean, you know, the numbers will say that it was pretty much domination, right, with the laps led, but you know, you weren't able to get that far away from guys. At one point, it was 2 seconds after the green flag pit cycle there towards the end, and it looked pretty comfortable. But, you know, as always, late race yellows, that car gets a couple of looks on you. I mean, how close was that margin between that car winning this race and those other guys swallowing you up? Because that top 10 was pretty evenly matched.
Yeah, again, I don't like this package at all. From everything that I ran this week, I kind of knew the first 6 to 7 laps is your opportunity to pass, and then you're kind of just stuck there. So we went green there. We had those green flag stops. Bowie had his mistake, and I knew all I had to do was, you know, be the first guy to pit minus Bowie, and I don't think they'd ever get around me. So I was heartbroken to see that caution. I thought it was over, and I mean, we were able to keep the lead through the pit cycles there, and then it just became, and I hate to do it, you got to block and just block every run and, you know, back it up to make the marrow tight, and I hate racing that way, but unfortunately that's how the package is. So it was just, if I got through those first 6 laps and car didn't get by, I felt comfortable, and that happened, and then we were able to pull away a little bit and get the win.
Of course, we return to familiar ground for you. You know, championship race this year will go to Phoenix Raceway once more, an opportunity for you to get a 4th consecutive SimSeats RealSimRacing Cup Series championship. You know, I expect that you won't stress that much about the next 2 weeks because I don't know how much you can learn at Kansas and Martinsville for a track like Phoenix. So what do the next 3 weeks look like for you headed into that title decider?
The next 3 weeks is literally just running AI races all the time at Phoenix. Like I said, I've never had the luxury of getting locked in the first race, so I'm going to use that to my advantage. You know, the next 2 weeks are just going to go out and have fun, try to play spoiler and win some of these races, but the focus is on Phoenix. Again, I've never had this opportunity, so I'm definitely going to take advantage of it, and, you know, Kansas and Martinsville are in the past right now. I'm not even worried about them.
Well, we appreciate you being a part of this series, Andrew. Congratulations on the win once more. Before we let you go, as always, the sponsors, the shout outs, and all those good folks, who makes it happen for you.
Big thanks to the Sim Racer film on the car this year. First year we had the sponsor. We're going to the Final Four with it, so maybe they're good luck. Big thanks to you, Evan, all you do, everybody with this league, all the drivers. Love racing around these guys. All the fans, I hope we put on a good show, and I really think that's about it.
He is headed to the Championship 4. Andrew Friedrich is your race winner tonight from Texas. Andrew, congratulations again. I'm sure we'll see you in the mix in the next couple of weeks, but if not, we'll see you in Phoenix.
Thanks so much, guys.
He is on top tonight, race win number 7 of 2021. Now, Nolan, we can bring you back in and talk with the guys in second and third. Since we got Andrew first, let's go with Zach Carr, who came home second tonight, and he can tell you a little bit about the other half of that battle for the race win at the end.
Well, Zachary, we got a lot of information from Andrew Friedrich about how that battle played out from his perspective. For him, he just had to try to back you up, and you kept trying to get past him, but you tried your best, is all I could say in that final stint.
It's just the name of the game of this 550 package, especially at Texas with how tight the car gets. I mean, really, to be honest with you, everybody could probably agree with me that's on the racetrack tonight. Your only shot at passing anybody around you is right in the first 5 laps. If you don't do it, then you're not getting by that person unless they really mess up their tires. So when I had the shots at Andrew, I decided it was time to take him, and I was hoping when I made that one final dive at him into one, it would scare him enough to where he would run a lane up or something, allow me to get to his inside. But he was very much not intimidated. So yeah, that was the final straw of attempts.
2 of the 3 cautions tonight seem to come out at very convenient times. One right at the end of a fuel window and one with about 20 laps to go. Did those cautions kind of change up your strategy at all, or was it kind of still relatively sweet and calm on that front throughout the rest of the race?
I mean, honestly, the first caution saved me. I haven't really ran or practiced all week, so when I got in here running second at the beginning of the race, I guess burned my stuff up, and I went from second, I think, to about 9th, about 4 seconds off of the leader. Finally got to pit road and realized it was 34% right front, and realized that was about 30% less than everybody else around me. So I'd honestly say the first caution saved me, and then all the other cautions just kind of, I think, played timely into when it was supposed to happen. Really didn't change much up.
And of course, you'll look forward to the Kansas Speedway. It's another 1.5 miles, but it is a far different beast than what we have here at Texas. It seems a lot smaller than it actually is. What do you think the game plan is going to be coming on over into the third last race on the season?
Well, it's really all going to depend on the tire wear, obviously the weather, and just the setup and as to how the car is going to drive. So, if we get it all combined to where the car is going to be super tight, we're going to all be around the top of the track. If we get a little looser, I think we'll have a couple lanes working. That raced there recently in another series, and yeah, we were all around the top. So as much as I don't mind that, because it takes a special skill to be right up next to that wall, I hope we can have some multi-lane racing so we can actually have some passes and maybe get another shot at Andrew next week.
And of course, it's been a pleasure as always being able to have you on up here to talk to us, Zachary. But before I let you go, who helps you to get it done at that number 26 Chevrolet?
I got to thank you guys for putting this on. Obviously, the league admins and everybody. Teammates, Jeremy, who wasn't here tonight, unfortunately. He had more important stuff to do, but, he's always a big help. Brian Chambliss and Jaron, obviously, they all helped me a lot.
Thank you, Zachary, for taking time out of your night to come up here and join us in the booth. Congratulations on a second-place finish. Hopefully, we'll see you in Victory Lane next week at Kansas.
Yep, thanks, guys.
That was Zachary Carr bringing it home in a P2 finish here on the night. We're going to move on down swiftly to the third and final driver on the podium. Michael Araya going to come on up and join us up here in the broadcast booth. Well, Michael, you were right in the thick of it throughout pretty much most of the race. It was either battle for the top 5 or for the podium for the most part for you tonight.
Yeah, what a great run for me tonight. I desperately needed something like this to happen. It's been kind of a tough season. I'm definitely disappointed I'm not going to make it into the round of 4 to battle for the championship this year. But basically, after we did the Roval race, I kind of took a new mindset and went back to some basics with what I did last year in regards to some setup things and just with my rig, and it seemed to pay off tonight. If I have another good run next week, then I definitely know the adjustments I've been making aren't a fluke. So yeah, it's great to have a top 5 tonight.
And of course, you mentioned about being a little bit more competitive as well. As now that you are eliminated from the round of 8, of course, you are still in here to, I imagine, win races. Is the plan to potentially go out and try to win one next week at Kansas?
Oh, definitely. That is the main goal from here on out, to get a win for the season. I feel good about going into Kansas. I was able to win there last year. I feel like I can have some good speed for that race going into next week. But yeah, just tonight, with being able to really stay within the top 5 most of the night and be in the hunt for the win there at the end is really encouraging.
And of course, looking over throughout the course of tonight and how next week could play out, similar track lengths, but not similar tracks in the slightest. Do you think the race we see next week might reflect what we saw tonight, or do you think it'll be a whole different ballgame?
I think it's going to be a little bit different. I think Kansas is actually going to give us more options as a driver to search around and try to make passes. In previous years, with the changes that iRacing has done with the track properties to kind of help that low lane be viable, it's definitely opened up the doors for us as drivers to search around and make passes. So I feel like comparing tonight to Kansas, it's going to be a little bit more racy. I feel like we're not going to be quite as stuck in like a draft bubble, and I think we can take more risks.
And of course, that should mean an exciting race for us at home to be able to watch as well. But you did a good job helping to put on an exciting race for us tonight here, Michael. Before we let you go, who helps you to be quick in that Flat Out Motorsports 44?
I got to thank Sim Speed Shop for being on board the car the whole season. I got to thank my teammates, Riley Grant Davis, Bradley Burke, Sam Nieto, and Joseph Tice for just supporting one another throughout the season and making us better.
Thank you, Michael, for taking the time out of your night to coming up here and join us in the booth. Congrats on a 3rd place finish, and best of luck next week at Kansas.
All right. Thanks, guys.
So that was Michael Araya coming to home 3rd place for the Flat Out Motorsports crew. And, well, Evan, that will also wrap out the drivers that we have on the podium for the time being.
Yeah, big thanks as always for those guys for stopping by and saying hi to us post-race in this one, and congratulations again to your top 3. Obviously, the first storyline is Andrew Freenosh is back in the championship Formula. And I mean, this is something that we expect, right? I mean, Andrew is the best driver to ever do it in this series tonight, picking up his 41st career win. For reference, the next closest driver is Daniel Eberhardt with 22. I mean, it is a big margin, right? The 3-time defending champ comes in every year, and we wonder, is this going to be the year? And it has been awfully close last couple of years, right? He hasn't walked away with it. But these last 7 weeks in these playoffs, I mean, he has flipped it up a notch, as he does all the time. And no shock at all that Andrew's the first one going to Phoenix, and I think a clear championship favorite at this point.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, we were kind of a little bit nervous coming on into tracks like Dover. That was his last win for some time of the season, went throughout much of the next couple of months winless, but he has come back in a full force here in the playoffs, and he has shown that while he might be a little bit rusty at some point, you can never count him out to put on a good performance.
3 wins in 7 weeks in the playoffs. So let's talk points for everybody else, right? So, of course, Andrew's locked in, but this one was pretty easy. Top 4 guys in the race of the playoff guys are the top 4 in the points. So Andrew's in. Liam Sheen is the bubble driver with 4,026 points. He is 5 points ahead of Nick Silver, who's the first driver out. So Silver's in 5th. Danson is 6th. Danson is 7 points out. You got de Blasio there as well. Couple of points out. You can see he's 9 back of Silver the bubble, and Eberhardt 13 back. When you add that to Sheen's plus 5, 18 back. So I thought Eberhardt would be worse off, to be honest. I thought Eberhardt was going to be in 100% must-win territory. 18 points to Sheen. I think that's doable over 2 weeks, but Daniel's going to want to go in and win the race next week. But for the guys above, Andrew Freenosh is in, Brandon Bowie, and how about the nights for Agnell, Phillip, and Liam Sheen Nolan recovering Agnell for the damage, Liam Sheen for causing a caution and getting an end of the longest line of penalty. For both of those guys to end up in the top 4, pretty impressive.
I couldn't agree more, and it goes to show, you know, that racing is incredibly unpredictable. It might look like it's going bad, but that doesn't mean you should necessarily count yourself out. You could always find yourself in worse situations. You should put yourself in those worst case scenarios when you tend to, you know, leave a race or kind of quit while you have the opportunity to run it back, potentially have the ability to make up some extra time. And tell you what, I mean, the next week, that is the perfect place to go out and make up some extra time on the track. It's going to be a more racy race. I think that's a safe thing to bet. We heard, you know, guys like Michael Araya were talking about how you can kind of move around a little bit more. We're not going to be seeing drivers as stuck in the draft bubbles as they were tonight. So you get a much more racy track at Kansas, and you take the chaos from tonight's race, and you wonder what might be in store for us in just 1 week's time.
And of course, it's Kansas, right? I mean, you know, Michael Araya, I think you could hear it talking to him, Nolan, how bummed he was that he didn't make it into this round of 8, because great run tonight. He's the defending race winner at Kansas. It's going to be a day race headed into that one, and that's always the track the question, right? Do you have the multi-groove race in it? Can you run the wall? And it could, even though it's an intermediate track, give us a very different race to what you saw tonight.
No two intermediate tracks are ever the same. I mean, Kansas does not have as high of a bank as Texas. It is not as wide as Texas, but I would argue it is also better in many ways than Texas, because like they were saying, it is easier to race at Kansas. You are not stuck in these drafting bubbles. You don't have, you know, one corner with higher banking than the other. It's a much more of a, looks more like a bit more of a clinical track, but as we've seen in the past, no matter what type of racing you put here, you're usually in for a good show.
And that'll be the next stage on the round for the round of 8 and the road to the championship. But until next time, that's it for us here tonight from Texas Motor Speedway. So on behalf of our entire team behind the scenes, for our entire team at RaceSpot TV, everybody that makes RealSimRacing possible, and for your broadcast team tonight. For our producer downstairs, Hugo Luis, for Nolan Rempel, and myself, Evan Pasoko, thanks so much for joining us, and congratulations to Andrew Freenosh. He is the first driver locked in to the Championship 4. We're back in 1 week's time. That one is on Monday, October the 25th, from the virtual Kansas Speedway. That race and every race of the 2021 SimSeats Real Sim Racing Cup Series playoffs can be found exclusively here on RaceSpot TV. Until next time, good night from Texas. Andrew Freenosh is headed to the Championship 4.